Chapter 118 to 123. There are definitely no signs of any injury on his body. Neither is there any weirdness in his chakra flow, and he also has a large volume of chakra left. Then why? What made him leave the battlefield so suddenly? Watching Uchiha Shinichi leave, Kakashi didn't rush to pursue him but tried to analyze the reason for Shinichi's retreat. Analyzing and evaluating the opponent's ability and strength are some of the qualities that every good shinobi must have. Being White Fang's son, Yellow Flash's disciple, the baptism he received in the Third Shinobi Great War, coupled with the teachings of the Umbu department, and finally his personal experience as a shinobi, that adding with his incredible talent makes Kakashi one of the best battlefield's analyzer. Therefore, the reason why he didn't chase after Shinichi is not that he is afraid of death. He didn't chase after Shinichi, because Kakashi understood that even with his Chidori he wouldn't be able to break through the defense of the dark green chakra phantom. Therefore, it is better to stay alive and pass on the information about Shinichi's ability to the village rather than dying a meaningless death. Once accurate information is passed back, then using that information as a basis a more targeted team can be organized to increase the success rate of hunting Shinichi. Whoosh! 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 While Kakashi was considering these things, few figures flickered at his sides one by one. The leader of this group was none other than the leader of Root Unit, Shimura Danzo. Accompanying him were the patriarchs of the Inoshikacho clans, as well many other elites ninjas including Hyuga Hizashi as well as other elite Chunin and Jonin. Scanning the entire battlefield coldly, Danzo's already gloomy expression only became gloomier. At this time, the entire battlefield was already in a mess with burning forest on one side, muddy ground on the other, the trees on the left were embedded, broken, or pierced with kunai, shuriken, and senbon, while the right side was a straight-up empty because of the Susanoo's attacks. All the Umbu ninjas were either dead or severely injured, and only one non-Uchiha Umbu with a Sharingan seemed to be okay. The situation here clearly dictated the tale of a tragic failure of the hunting operation organized by Sandaime. Kakashi, who was wearing his dog Umbu mask, respectfully greeted Danzo and spoke with a guilty expression. "Please forgive us, Danzo-sama, we weren't able to suppress Uchiha Shinichi." Danzo stared at dog-masked Umbu with a cold expression and muttered in a gloomy voice, "Which way did he go?" Dog pointed in the direction Shinichi escaped and continued, "Danzo-sama, it wouldn't be a good idea without targeted planning. Uchiha Shinichi's Mangekyou ability is quite strange, I think." However, before Dog could finish speaking, Shimura Danzo ignored him and disappeared in the direction Shinichi left. Being ignored by him, Kakashi could only sigh helplessly. To pursue Uchiha Shinichi, Sandaime dispatched 3 Umbu squads. Unfortunately, the 4 members of the first Umbu squad died without putting much of a resistance, then the 2 members of the 2 squads that Kakashi led died because of underestimating the enemy, while the other 5 are injured critically, leaving only him who was still fine. But even after the sacrifice of so many trusted ninjas of the Umbu unit, nothing was achieved. Not only did they fail to subdue and bring Shinichi back to the village for the trial or kill him, but they couldn't even obtain all the information about Shinichi's Mangekyou Sharingan and his other abilities. Their deaths were more or less meaningless. Soon the news of the failed hunt was passed back to the village. Sandaime, who was outside the Uchiha compound along with several Umbu and Konoha ninja, had an unconsciously serious expression upon learning this news. Frankly speaking, the degree of growth of Uchiha Shinichi's strength is somewhat beyond his expectations. And Shinichi's defection is like a sudden pebble that stirred up the calm lake, i.e., Konoha is now again engulfed into the ripples of chaos. The unstable balance between the Hokage faction and the Uchiha clan is again disturbed. Not to mention the weakness of Konoha was again revealed. An Uchiha brat who just awakened the power of the Mangekyou can already mess around the village and walk away indifferently. This just goes to show how rotten the tree planted by Showdown has become. Sandaime, who was playing with the tobacco pipe, glanced towards Uchiha Fugaku's expression from the corner of his eyes. Sandaime was indeed worried that Umbu's failure to hunt down Uchiha Shinichi might even make the Uchiha clan more hardened for the coup. And Sandaime already knows that aside from Shinichi, Shursui has also awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. After shifting his gaze from Fugaku to Shursui, Sandaime observed the young genius of the Uchiha clan with a calculating gaze and finally reached a conclusion: we must draw Shursui to our side, otherwise, Konoha might even become a history. With that thought in his mind, Sandaime left the Uchiha compound. Since the Uchiha clan didn't participate in Shinichi's rebellion, so after calming down the agitated Uchiha clan and reassuring Fugaku a little, Sandaime left and the other Konoha ninjas that surrounded the Uchiha clan perimeter dispersed under his order. And around the same time, Kuroto also returned to Yui's house after robbing Danzo. Next day. As soon as the first ray of the morning light fell on his courtyard, an Umbu ninja arrived at his house and informed Kuroto, Special Jonin Hyuga Kuroto, the temporary suspension of Team 11 is lifted, report to Hokage-sama's summon immediately. Kuroto, who was already somewhat prepared, nodded immediately, and after simply dressing up in his combat vest, he arrived at the Hokage building. After entering the Hokage office, Kuroto nodded towards the other 3 members of Team 11 who had already arrived and were waiting for him, and then stood before the desk patiently. With Kuroto's arrival, Sandame nodded towards Kakashi. Kakashi, who received Sandame's permission, immediately described the entire information and his side of the story. After Kakashi finished speaking, Sandame exhaled the smoke and ordered with a sharp eye, "With that said, the mission of Team 11 is to hunt down the missing nin, Uchiha Shinichi, is that clear?" "Yes." After leaving the Hokage building, Kakashi ordered the 3 members of Team 11, "Time is limited, everyone will have only half an hour to prepare for the mission, we will gather at the meeting point in 30 minutes and set off for the hunting mission. As for the other information on Uchiha Shinichi's ability, I will describe it in detail on the way." All 3 nodded and dispersed to prepare for the mission. Back at his home, Kuroto, who was preparing the ninja equipment and military pills, thought to himself, the cooperation between Shinichi and Obito is still not clear. If they are really working together, then I'll have to be careful of Obito too while on this mission. According to the information that Kakashi told the team, Kuroto understood that Shinichi wasn't able to find Danzo last night. And this is precisely why Kuroto was a little confused. Because not only can Obito freely enter and exit the village, but he also has access to information because of Zetsu by his side, so if Shinichi and Obito were in a cooperating relationship, Shinichi would have definitely found Danzo just like Sasuke did. And since this didn't happen, so it could only mean one thing, Shinichi took actions on his own and didn't have Obito's direct support. Although Kuroto is more or less sure of his guess, it is still not 100% confirmed. But anyway, Kuroto also decided to take an extra storage tank filled with green nutrient solution. This mission is also a chance to obtain a pair of Mangekyou Sharingan for research. As long as Shinichi's Mangekyou ability is not too exaggerated, Kuroto is sure that he can take away that pair of Mangekyou. After all, as long as the situation permits, Kuroto wouldn't mind collecting something that has incredible research value as well as high trade value with Orochimaru. All the 4 members of the Team 11 were already gathered at the meeting spot within 20 minutes. The first one to arrive wasn't the Captain Kakashi, but Shisui. Shisui has been continuously blaming himself for Shinichi's defection. If only he used a different approach to explain to Shinichi the entire story, then maybe things would have turned out differently. To correct his mistake, Shisui had already made up his mind to bring Shinichi back to the village, even if had to use Koto Ematsukami to do it. Unfortunately, Hokage-sama didn't allow him to go after Shinichi last night. This is why when he received the news that the temporary suspension on Team 11 has been lifted, Shisui was very happy and immediately rushed towards the Hokage office. Although Shisui doesn't understand the exact reason why Sandame allowed him to return to the Umbu, it is still not too important for now, and his only concern right now is to safely bring Shinichi back to the village. Kakashi also had a rare serious expression and said solemnly, "I am afraid that the mission this time is very dangerous, everyone must stay alert all the time." Shisui hurriedly bowed to everyone in a guilty tone, "I apologize for Shinichi's actions, a member of the Uchiha clan has caused so much trouble for everyone in the village." Guy smiled heartily behind his monkey mask and said in a youthful tone, Don't worry too much about it, we are a team, and your problems are our problems, besides, with this team, completing this mission shouldn't be that difficult." Noticing that time was already up, Kuroto said boringly, "I think we should depart, all the other things can be discussed en route." Everyone nodded and immediately set off. On the way, Kakashi described the details of the other Umbu team's battle against Shinichi that took place in the forest outside Konoha and emphasized one detail with a deep voice: he can also summon a huge chakra phantom that has a skeletal shape. "I still don't have any method to break through that." Shisui immediately said, "That chakra phantom is a Mangekyou specific ability, it's called Susanoo." Kakashi muttered in shock, "Susanoo? A Mangekyou specific ability?" Kakashi was obviously a stranger to Susanoo before he witnessed Shinichi use this technique. This is because both the time Shisui used Susanoo, Kakashi didn't get a chance to witness it. One time it was inside the cave of the Demon Mountain in the Land of Swamp, to fight against the Demon Morio, and the other time was at the valley at the Land of Lightning. And at that time Kakashi was already unconscious and retreated under Guy's protection. And since Shisui didn't mention the Susanoo in the later detail, therefore Kakashi didn't know about it. Therefore, Kakashi is more shocked, and since Shisui mentioned that it's a Mangekyou specific ability, does that mean, can he also use Susanoo? After all, he also has a Mangekyou Sharingan. Shisui noticed Kakashi's distraction and misunderstood it as a worry about Shinichi's Susanoo, so said in reassurance, "Don't worry, Captain, I can also use Susanoo." If that's the case, then this mission just got a lot easier. With Shisui's confirmation that he can also summon the Susanoo, Kakashi was greatly relieved. At the same time, he again felt that only Sharingan can effectively deal with Sharingan, in which case, only an Uchiha is best to deal with another Uchiha. With that out of the way, Kakashi again mentioned Shinichi's extra-fast regenerative/recovery ability. Feeling Kakashi's expectant gaze, Shisui was silent and considered what could be the technique. In the millennial-year history of the Uchiha clan, countless types of jutsu have been developed and an unknown number of Mangekyou Awakener have been listed, so even if he wants to guess, there are so many abilities that even Shisui doesn't know where to begin with to guess the possible Mangekyou jutsu that Shinichi might have awakened. After all, there isn't any specific basis to guess what ability one would awaken, right? On the other side, Kuroto was also silently considering the Mangekyou technique that Shinichi might have awakened. The Sharingan, as per Nidame's words, is actually the eye that reflects the feeling, so the possible ability that an awakener gain has some basis to it. When Obito awakened Mangekyou, he fell into a state of despair and wanted to escape the reality of Rin's death, so he awakened Kamui, a personal pocket space to which he could escape from everything. When Shisui awakened Mangekyou, the contradiction between the village and Konoha was starting to become intense, and he urgently wanted to change people's will and make everyone reconcile to let the peace last. Therefore he awakened Koto Amatsukami, the strongest and unique genjutsu that allows him to modify others' will without letting them discover it. As for Itachi, when he awakened Mangekyou, the relation between the village and the Uchiha clan was already past the point of reconciliation and one side must be destroyed for the peace to continue. Therefore he awakened Amaterasu, the undying flame of hell that can destroy everything in his right eye, and since there was still a desire of a world where things could have been different, so he awakened Tsukuyumi, in his left eye, one of the most power genjutsu where Itachi had absolute control of everything, even the esoteric space and time. And finally, when Sasuke awakened Mangekyou, he was consumed by hatred and a desire for revenge, for which he wanted to completely destroy Konoha, so he awakened Amaterasu and Kagutsuchi, in his left and right eye respectively. So, if Shinichi's mentality at the time of awakening Mangekyou or his base emotions that led to him awakening Mangekyou can be guessed, then it is possible what ability he might have awakened. With that thought in his mind, Kuroto asked, "Shisui, explain to me the process of Uchiha Kurumi's death again." Shisui didn't ask much and quickly explained the entire that Shinichi described at the clan. Listening carefully to Shisui's explanation, Kuroto suddenly asked, "Wait a minute, you are saying that Uchiha Kurumi didn't die immediately when she was pierced by the kunai, but she died in Shinichi's arms while he was bringing her back to the village?" Shisui nodded seriously, and added, "Shinichi did mention that the last words she spoke were for him to be careful." Understanding this, Kuroto thought to himself, the girl he loved took her last breath in his arms, but he was helpless and couldn't do anything and just watch her die. Moreover, even in her death she warned him to be careful of something. So, the moment he awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, his ability should be recovery? Recovery does make sense, but it isn't the entirety of it, and the next question is whether the ability of both his eyes are the same or are they different. While Kuroto was busy thinking, Kakashi suddenly seemed to remember something and said with a solemn expression, "Uchiha Shinichi's genjutsu mastery has also increased a lot, and most of the Umbu and Root ninjas he has killed using genjutsu combined with Kenjutsu, so be careful of that." Ha ha ha. Hearing Kakasahi's words, Guy laughed loudly. Shisui was puzzled by this, asked in confusion, "Guy-san, why are you laughing?" Guy rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and said with a triumphant thumbs up, "Recently I have been practicing a trick to not look into the enemy's eye while fighting and still be able to judge their movements. With this I will finally be able to defeat Kakashi. Didn't expect that it would come in handy for this mission. When I meet Uchiha Shinichi, I must defeat him." Kakashi said helplessly, hearing Guy's words, "The one I am most worried about is you, Guy." Shisui also nodded, "Well, when we meet Shinichi, let me take care of him. I can use both Susanoo, and in terms of genjutsu also, I should still be better than." Halfway stopping in his sentence, Shisui turned towards Kuroto, who was still busy with his analysis. Noticing Shisui's gaze, Kuroto looked at him and asked with a gentle smile, "Just speak whatever you want to, there's no need for any hesitation." "Kuroto-san, you must promise me." After a pause, Shisui continued, "If you can, please try to save Shinichi. Although a little arrogant, his nature is not bad, it's just that recently he has been." Hearing Shisui's words, both Kakashi and Guy looked at Kuroto with visible confusion in their eyes. The way Shisui asked for Kuroto to promise felt quite strange to both. His manner of speaking clearly implied that if Kuroto wants he can easily crush Shinichi, but Uchiha Shinichi with the Mangekyou Sharingan caused such chaos at the root base, and then defeated 3 Umbu squads chasing after him with complete ease. This just goes to show how strong he has become. And even if they know that Kuroto has also become incredibly strong, and has already surpassed the level of a Jonin, both of them still don't think that Kuroto could be so strong that he could easily crush Uchiha Shinichi. Hearing Shirsue's request, Kuroto shook his head helplessly. Mangekyou abilities can get too weird, so if I don't fight with the determination to kill him, the battle might just get troublesome. In the shinobi world, no one has the qualification to underestimate the enemy. And this rule even applies to the likes of the Jubi Jinchuriki, Madara, and the chakra ancestor, Kagaya. Kakashi frowned while looking at the communication scroll that the communication eagle delivered. Shirsue, who was intently looking at Kakashi, asked quickly, "Captain, did Danzo-sama caught up with Shinichi?" Kakashi passed the scroll to Shirsue while shaking his head and spoke. Danzo-sama and the other ninjas of the chasing team were led away by Shinichi's shadow clone, so they lost track of Shinichi's movements. Shirsue breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. Shinichi's actions at the root base not only caused damage to the village manpower, disturbed the balance between the Uchiha and the village, but also directly harmed Shimura Danzo's prestige. It was sort of a direct slap in the face of Danzo's authority. The entire cause of Shinichi's actions this time was to kill Shimura Danzo. Danzo's malice towards the Uchiha clan is not hidden, and since Uchiha Shinichi caused such a heavy blow to Danzo's prestige, so Shirsue was very worried that if Danzo and Shinichi meet, one side would definitely die, which would be very harmful to the village. If Shinichi were to die, then controlling the restless Uchiha clan will become next to impossible. And if Danzo were to die, then again controlling the restless Uchiha clan will become next to impossible. So, the best scenario would be that both of them don't meet until Shirsue uses Koto Emetsukami on Shinichi. When Kuroto took the scroll and slightly glanced at the content, he couldn't help but chuckle lightly. "Ha, looks like we will be getting busy." Kuroto believes that all the shinobi with Dojutsu Kekkai Genkai can be a master of tracking and anti-tracking. Even in the Hyuga clan, the children of the clan have trained the art of tracking and anti-tracking, so as long as the strength of the member of the Hyuga clan reaches a standard Chunin class, it wouldn't be surprising to find that they have become a master tracker. Kuroto himself has received such training not only from the Hyuga clan but also personally from his teacher Orochimaru. After all, a snake has to always be careful of the path he treads. And this fact also applies to the Uchiha clan with their Sharingan, although the Uchiha specialize more in anti-tracking. So, tracking the movements of an ordinary Uchiha Jonin with a 3-tomo Sharingan is already a very difficult task, not to mention Uchiha Shinichi, who has awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. Because this incident took place all too sudden, so Danzo only had time to bring Hyuga Hizashi of the Hyuga clan with him. The impatient Danzo didn't wait for the arrival of the other expert ninjas from the Inuzuka and Aburame clan that live on the edge of Konoha and hurriedly went after Shinichi with just Hyuga Hizashi. Obviously, Danzo wanted to kill Uchiha Shinichi as soon as possible to not only minimize the impact of this storm but also to obtain a fresh pair of Mangekyou Sharingan for him. But unfortunately for him, his impatience backfired, and without the assistance of the Aburame and Inuzuka that can track through smell and by receiving signals from the insects. With just a pair of Byakugan, it is very difficult to track Shinichi, who specializes in anti-tracking because of his Mangekyou for Hyuga Hizashi, even if he is one of the strongest shinobi of the current Konoha. And this, here again, reflects the lack of Kage-class powerhouses in the village to effectively deal with such emergencies. There is no shortage of elites in Konoha, but there is really a lack of Kage-class shinobi. Sandaime needs to sit in the village, Jiraiya is still at the battlefront against Cloud to defend against any possible raid and participating in peace negotiations. So, when Shinichi made such a mess, Danzo is the only one that Sandaime trusted enough to chase after Shinichi. But the fact of the matter is that Danzo has already stayed in the shadows for too long. By now he has already lost most of his natural strength and will, but there is still an unrealistic obsession of becoming the Hokage and uniting the shinobi world. But because he lacks the natural will, he always avoids dangerous scenarios. After all, even in the original series, Danzo shrank away during the Kyuubi's rebellion, Danzo shrank away during Orochimaru's defection, later he shrank away during the Sans Konoha Crush plan, and finally, he again shrank away at the time of Pain's assault. From beginning to end, no matter how much damage Konoha suffered, Danzo would always hide in the shadows and watch it all happen with cold eyes with the hope of one day coming to the light. But how can that happen? If he isn't even willing to dedicate himself to the cause and safety of the village, how can he ever become the light of Konoha? Shaking his head helplessly, Kuroto turned towards Guy, who asked with a frowning expression, since Danzo equals Sama's team lost his tracks, then where do we find him? Kakashi didn't answer, just directly summoned. Ninpu, Kuchios no Jutsu. Puff. When the white smoke disappeared, 8 ninken of different sizes, colors, and appearances appeared before the 4 members of Team 11. Taking out a small piece of cloth that was stained in blood, Kakashi handed it to the 8 ninken while saying, "Pakken, please help me find the owner of this smell." This piece of cloth was found by Kakashi at the battlefield last night. The owner of the blood on it is none other than Uchiha Shinichi. Although Shinichi's injuries recovered instantly, the blood didn't disappear. Pakken sniffed the cloth for a short while and then said, "Follow me." With that, Pakken led the way. After several hours of tracking, everyone stopped at a spot. Kakashi, the owner of that smell, should be hiding there. Following the direction Pakken pointed at, all 4 of Team 11 looked over and saw nothing but a very large tree. At this time, everyone's gaze turned towards Kuroto. And Kuroto, who has already activated the Byakugan, observed the large tree, then shook his head negatively. There is only one hole. Shinichi isn't there, although several signs are indicating that he was there not too long ago. Nodding at Kuroto's guess, everyone came to the tree hole and was slightly taken aback by what they saw inside it. There were several stains of blood that has coagulated in the tree cave, along with many blood-stained bandages scattered around. From the mess that was spread around, it wasn't hard to guess that a severely injured person was here and bandaged his wounds while hiding in this tree cave. Shursui asked with a puzzled expression, did Shinichi suffered such serious injury? And Danzo-sama could still not find his tracks. Kakashi turned towards Pakken and asked in confirmation, does the smell of blood in this tree cave match the smell of the blood on that piece of cloth? After sniffing a little to check, Pakken nodded, yes, no doubt about it. Kuroto, who crouched down at a spot to check something, said lightly, the blood here is already coagulated and turned blackish. That means that it was dripped on the ground last night at the latest, so Shinichi definitely left here before today. Putting some pieces together, Shursui muttered solemnly, is there any other group chasing after him? Shinichi didn't even bother removing the blood and bandages here. We can't rule out that possibility. After a short pause, Kuroto turned towards Kakashi and asked in confusion, are you sure Uchiha Shinichi has some sort of recovery/regeneration ability? And are you really sure that he didn't have any injury when he left the battlefield yesterday? Kakashi nodded seriously, yes, during the battle he did receive several serious wounds, but they all disappeared too fast. It was a complete recovery with not even any scars left behind. Kakashi's insight is also not any worse than Shursui's with his Mangekyou, so he had confidence in what he saw. What's more, he was intently observing Shinichi during the entire course of the battle, so close to no detail escaped his eye. He didn't have any injury when he left. The chasing team under Danzo's command was led away by his shadow clone, then how come he suffered such injuries even with his recovery abilities? Who could injure him to such a degree? Was it Obito? Or someone else that I don't know of? Kuroto thought quietly while putting his one hand on his chin. In Kuroto's understanding, if it was Obito, then Shinichi is either already dead or escaped at the cost of his Mangekyou Sharingan, so he lost his recovery ability. In whichever case, there shouldn't have been a fierce battle. This isn't in line with Obito's methods. Unless Shinichi could force Obito to use would release. But then Kuroto immediately shook his head in denying that possibility. This idea sounds almost too absurd to be true. Firstly, there is no need for Obito to have a death match against Shinichi, and secondly, Obito wouldn't risk letting Shinichi escape alive if he exposed the would release. After all, Obito is pretending to be Uchiha Madara. And by general Uchiha standards, Madara wouldn't give up his pride to obtain the Senju's would release, whom he hates very much. With that thought in his mind, there is only the last possibility that remains. So, containing his thoughts, Kuroto said to the rest of the Team 11, the most likely explanation points towards a third group that has intervened in this matter. We should be more careful in this mission. After concluding that there might be an intervention of a third party, every one of Team 11 except for Kuroto became a little worried. They were worried both about the intentions of the third party as well as the safety of Uchiha Shinichi. If Shinichi were to fall into the hands of that third party, then things could get worse. After all, it's not difficult to estimate the true value of Mangekyou Sharingan, and it's still possible to transplant those eyes to others, with Kakashi being the best example. Now, considering that the power of the Mangekyou Sharingan might fall into the hands of people outside Konoha, Shursui quickly asked Pakken, can we continue tracking him? Pakken went around the tree cave and said, it's hard to say, the smell is mostly concentrated inside the tree hole, and the smell outside is very weak. Kakashi still asked Pakken, please try it. Pakken nodded and instantly the 8 Ninken spread in and around the tree cave to search for any trail they could find that is left by Uchiha Shinichi. And not long after one of the Ninken raised its paw and said, "Found it." Pakken immediately hurried over to the side and nodded after carefully sniffing, well, it's the trail he left behind. Since Shinichi's tracks were again discovered, Team 11 didn't delay any longer and immediately followed after Pakken. The day passed quickly as Team 11 took a short break. At the temporary camp, Kakashi, Shisui, Kuroto, and Guy sat together and carefully studying the route they took on a map. From the escape route Shinichi has followed up to now, he seems to be going in the direction of the Land of Lightning, so the possible location he might escape to are, the Land of Hot Water, the Land of Frost, the Land of Moon, and finally the Land of Lightning. Kakashi's words made everyone fall into silence. The 4 members of Team 11 are still a little familiar with this territory because of completing the mission of destroying Cloud Village's secret warehouse as well as disturbing Cloud Village's transportation line in the Land of Hot Water, so they more or less understand just what could this territory mean. If Shinichi's intention is to hide in the Land of Hot Water, the Land of Moon, or the Land of Frost, then it is still not too worrisome, but if he is going into the territory of the Land of Lightning, then this matter would get way too troublesome. As a special jonin, Shinichi has much access to many secrets of the village. Additionally, being a shinobi of the Uchiha clan, Shinichi also has secret intelligence about the Uchiha clan and Konoha police, and most of all, he is perfectly aware of the rift between the Hokage faction and Uchiha clan. In other words, even if his Mangekyou is not counted, the intelligence he holds with him is still very important. If such secret information falls into the hands of the Cloud Village, then it would be too detrimental for Konoha. With a sigh, Shisui muttered helplessly, he must not be allowed to cross the territory of the Land of Fire. Guy also nodded in agreement, well, we can't allow him to make mistakes again and again. Kakashi also stated, I will send a message to Jiraiya-sama at the border camp, so they will be prepared to intercept him. While they were all discussing these things, Kuroto was silent and thought silently to himself, does he want to defect to the Cloud Village? But the more important question is, will the Cloud Village give shelter to Shinichi? Will Cloud Village even trust Shinichi? If Cloud Village did give refuge to Uchiha Shinichi, then the ongoing peace talks will all become meaningless, and the relationship between Konoha and Cloud will again return to the previous state of war, and this time, Konoha would not have any other option but to fight Cloud Village until the end. However, considering just how cheeky Reikage is, they might just secretly give refuge to Shinichi, but on the surface, they wouldn't reveal anything and simply say that they don't know anything about it. After all, they did dare do such a thing twice in the original series, when they attempted to steal children from Konoha village, therefore, another village might not do such a thing because of their pride, but Cloud will definitely do such a thing. And it wouldn't even be strange if Shinichi is used to breed another Uchiha clan in the Cloud village. Although Kuroto doesn't believe that Shinichi would agree to such a thing. Next day. After taking the short break, Team 11 continued chasing again for the entire night and the following day. Initially thought that it was just a simple task of hunting a missing nin, but now there are signs of involvement of the mysterious third party, and the fact that Shinichi's goal might actually be the Cloud Village, this simple mission has become way too complicated until everything clarifies. All 4 already understood that if Shinichi is allowed to defect to the Cloud Village, then the matter would definitely escalate to another shinobi war, and they can't have that. But all that aside, one thing has started to bug everyone now. After chasing for continuously 2 days, Kuroto was the first one to speak with a frown, this is too strange. Guy also said from the side, yes, if Uchiha Shinichi is seriously injured then how could he travel without any rest, not to mention his speed is too fast. This is totally unreasonable. Shisui said with an impatient tone, we can't control this, for now, keep chasing. It's not really the time to worry about these things, once they caught up with Shinichi, everything will be cleared. With that thought, all 4 increased their speed. In the evening, when the sun gradually sunk, leaving a warm glow on the horizon, the Ninken Pakken who had been leading them for the whole day suddenly said, the smell is increasing, the target is not too far ahead. As soon as Pakken stated, all 4 of the Team 11 immediately became alert and raised their guard. Although they are indeed happy that they caught up with Shinichi within the territory of the Land of Fire, this interception also means that a big battle is up ahead, and considering that there might also be the presence of the mysterious third-party force, Team 11 had no expression of excitement. However, this still didn't slow them down and they increased their speed again. After traveling for another short while, Kuroto suddenly shouted, everyone, scatter. Boom. 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 As soon as Kuroto's words fell, all four instantly separated in four different directions, and immediately after that, a series of explosions covered the area they were at. Kuroto, who landed on a tree safely, observed everything with the Byakugan. The explosion just now was obviously an ambush, but what's surprising is that the detonation charm used for designing this ambush had definitely undergone a special treatment that decreased their chakra emission readily. If it was any Hyuga ninja other than Kuroto, they would have definitely suffered. But this also gave him a piece of intelligence, and that is the fact that whoever set up this ambush seems to be aware of the presence of a Hyuga in the team chasing after them. And it's not too strange either. After all, Hyugas are some of the best trackers in Konoha village, so the enemy preparing a trap with the thought in mind that a Hyuga shinobi might be part of the chasing team just shows that he has good analysis ability. And since that's the case, then this is definitely a targeted ambush. In just a moment Kuroto reached this conclusion. At this time, the smoke and dust produced by the explosion of the detonation charms had not yet disappeared. Because of Kuroto's warning, Kakashi, Shisui, and Guy did avoid the explosion, but the four of them still scattered in four different directions. And Kuroto is also able to perceive many live chakra reactions surrounding all four of them, but that's not it. Each and every shinobi surrounding them is at least a chunin rank, with several special jonin and jonin are also part of the fray. Immediately noticing this, Kuroto's expression shrank. It's not that he was worried about himself, but he was worried about the other three and hurriedly shouted towards the other them, "Be careful everyone, there are a lot of ninjas on the other side, and they are all chunin or higher." As soon as Kuroto's voice came out, there was a sound of something coming towards him. Based on the sound alone, Kuroto judged that several kunais were coming towards him, and based on the fact that there was such an ambush here, these kunai must have detonation charm tied to them. Without waiting for even a second to pass, as soon as he noticed this, Kuroto flickered away, easily avoiding the kunai, and retreated to relatively open space. At this time, the silhouette of the person responsible for all this trouble came into view, and Kuroto was a little surprised seeing this person because it was none other than Shinichi that calmly walked towards him, whom Team 11 was chasing after. Getting out of surprise that was only a momentarily one, Kuroto said with a smirk, "Showing up here all alone? You wouldn't happen to want to single out with me, do you? Because if that's the case, then all this trouble you caused was unnecessary. You could have just let me know and I would have accepted the challenge. After all, I have been itching to step up on another Uchiha for a while now." Shinichi calmly pulled out the short sword at his back, and said with a contemptuous tone while ignoring the last part of Kuroto's sentence, "Yes, defeating you was my goal for training from the beginning, so I want to get done with it before I finally cut all ties with the Uchiha and Konoha. But you needn't worry, after defeating you, I'll leave you be by sparing your life, because in a way, I am grateful to you for breaking my arrogance." Rising up from the ground, the half-body of Zetsu came out of the ground and asked the masked man who stood on the side with a puzzled expression, "Why are you helping that kid even now?" The main reason why the team led by Danzo couldn't discover Uchiha Shinichi's tracks was because of the indirect help the masked man provided him. Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult for Shinichi to get rid of the chase simply depending on his own skills. The masked man, who carefreely stood with his hands crossed at the back of his head, replied calmly without moving his gaze, "Simply because he is a useful chess piece." Zetsu frowned a little and said in a disapproving tone, "But we have lost control of him." "No," muttered the masked man, and continued in a flat tone, "So long as he continues to live, that is already more than enough, for now." The masked man is very clear about the contradiction between the Uchiha and the village, therefore, as long as Uchiha Shinichi remains alive outside Konoha as a missing nin, the rift between the Hokage faction and the Uchiha clan will never be solved. At this time, Zetsu said while pointing in one direction, "Konoha has sent the team 11, so it is hard to say whether he can successfully escape out of the land of fire." The masked man asked in a dissatisfied tone, "Didn't I tell you to let your clone watch him?" However, completely ignoring the masked man's dissatisfied tone, Zetsu just shrugged, "His perception has increased too much, my clone can't get any closer." Ever since Shinichi awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, his perception and other sensory skills have become so apt that even being a non-sensor type, he already exceeds the ability of many sensor class, therefore, it is difficult to monitor him without letting him discover. "Fine, but make sure to keep watch of him, even if from afar, it's not yet time for him to die." After speaking this sentence, the masked man fell into deep thought as he remembered the mysterious black masked man that he encountered at the root base. Zetsu noticed the masked man's change and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" The masked man didn't hide it and simply described the events that took place at the root base. "I encountered a mysterious person at the root base, his strength was very strong, I had a short bout against him and in that short bout, I couldn't take advantage for even an instant." Zetsu was really surprised and asked in confusion, Konoha still has such a shinobi? The masked man shook his head as he said, there shouldn't be, apart from the few old men and Jiraiya, there shouldn't be anyone else in Konoha with such strength. What's more, for some reason that I am unable to comprehend, that person gave me a familiar feeling, it's as if I know him but at the same time I don't. Familiar. After a short pause, Zetsu continued, so, you are saying that you know him? The masked man shook his head in denial, that's what bugs me, among the people I know, there shouldn't be any such person. From that time, the masked man has been trying to recall if he can find anything, but he has still not found any identity that could match that person. Among the people he knows, except for Yondaime Hokage, no one has the strength to match that mysterious person, not even Kakashi, who has his left eye. And what makes Masked Man cautious is the confidence the other party revealed. For a moment the confidence the other party showed did remind him of Konoha's yellow flash. And that could be troublesome. Zetsu was a little intrigued by this and said with a chuckle, if there's someone that can even make you feel cautious, I am a little curious as to who that person might be. Boom. 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 The sound of explosions and metal clashing metal can still be heard. Just listening to the movement Kuroto can more or less judge that the rest of the members of Team 11 are fiercely fighting there. Uchiha Shinichi standing opposite to Kuroto drew his short sword and waved it casually while saying, Hyuga Kuroto, in fact, as I said, I don't hate you, but the regret I feel for losing to you back then still makes me unable to forget. Observing everything going around in the vicinity, Kuroto could only sigh, we all underestimated you big time. The identity of the mysterious third party is no longer hidden now, and this also confirmed that the scene at the tree cave might actually be a part of their plan to lead Team 11 or the other chasers here into an ambush. Moreover, from just one look Kuroto can confirm that Shinichi is not injured as they thought. This explains why his traveling speed was still too high. But the next surprising thing is just how was Shinichi able to come in contact with Cloud Army and let it infiltrate into the Land of Fire? Was it Obito's work? After all, this ambush was prepared by their combined effort, so there is no doubt that Shinichi has some sort of cooperative relationship with the Cloud Village. Otherwise, the Cloud Village would definitely not have the time and opportunity to send so many elites ninjas here. Kuroto speculated that the spy Cloud Village planted in Konoha somehow came into contact with Shinichi and helped him plan this all out. This Kumo spy hidden in Konoha not only perfectly understood Shinichi's resentment towards Konoha but also managed to approach the guy, and was able to induce Shinichi to form a cooperative relationship. From just this alone, it can be guessed that the identity and status of this spy are not ordinary. After all, this spy is probably the reason why the accurate information of the members of Team 11 is printed in the bingo book. Now understanding that, Kuroto would have to find who that person may be. But Kuroto was also glad on the fact that he didn't yet reveal the information about the Tenseigan and Ryumyaku to the village. And now this thing has benefited him. After all, most of the intel about him in the bingo book is incomplete. And, same is the case with Shisui and Kakashi. After all, the spy wouldn't have been aware of Shisui and Kakashi's Mangekyou Sharingan. So, this makes most of the information the spy provided sort of useless. And this is exactly one of the reasons why Kuroto never revealed the secret of his Tenseigan to anyone. But finding and disposing of him is something I'll have to take care of. After suppressing all these thoughts, Kuroto slowly brought out his Kusanagi sword as he spoke to Shinichi, I understand, let's change places, I won't be able to give you the battle you want here. Shinichi was startled by what Kuroto said, and immediately shook his head with a helpless smile, no, you don't seem to understand, in fact, I don't need much time to deal with you. Kuroto didn't pay any attention to Shinichi, and directly left in a direction after dropping just 2 words, follow me. Shinichi misunderstood Kuroto's actions, as he muttered, don't you feel embarrassed to run away from a battle? And with a chuckle, Shinichi chased after Kuroto. Whether it was Kuroto or Shinichi, the strength of both the shinobi has already surpassed the level of a jonin, therefore, both their speed was extremely fast, so it didn't take long for them to leave the battlefield at the ambush point. Noticing that they were already quite far away, Shinichi asked impatiently, hey, where are you trying to escape? Kuroto, who was at the front, didn't bother turning back, I am not trying to escape, I just want to deal with you at a place where no one else is present. Shinichi just snorted, Baka, you don't understand what it means to awaken the Mangekyou Sharingan. Your Byakugan is nothing in comparison to my eyes. Kuroto simply ignored Shinichi's rambling and finally stopped after moving a little more distance. As soon as Kuroto stopped, Shinichi also stopped, and while tapping his sword over his shoulder, he said with emotion, ever since I awakened these cursed eyes, I have changed. At this time, Shinichi was completely immersed in emotion and self-monologue that Kuroto felt a little dumbfounded. But Kuroto could understand what Shinichi meant, an Uchiha who just awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan. A sudden gain of such incomprehensible power must make him feel a little intoxicated. He was able to easily slaughter away the Root and Umbu ninja, so obviously, his confidence would inflate. After all, Kuroto also experienced this phase back when he just awakened the Tenseigan, so he is no stranger to it, and it was only because of some of the difficult experiences he went through, did Kuroto learn to never overestimate himself. Unfortunately for Shinichi, he hasn't experienced such a thing yet, so he doesn't understand this. And Kuroto would obviously not shy away to use this to his advantage. This is obviously an opportunity. Kuroto didn't miss this opportunity and directly used Rain Pull to draw Shinichi and rushed towards him along with positioning the Kusanagi sword. Mangekyou Sharingan can have all sorts of weird abilities, so if Kuroto has the opportunity to land a surprise attack, then it's better to utilize it. Slash. Shinichi was shocked as his body suddenly flew towards Hyuga Kuroto and was stabbed through the heart by the sword. Look at his chest through which the metal sword pierced his heart, Shinichi asked in confusion, what was that just now? Listening to Shinichi's murmur, Kuroto immediately pulled out his sword and retreated backward. Retreating backward, Kuroto observed that just as Kakashi described, the stab wound on Shinichi's chest quickly healed. If not for the blood on his sword and the cut on his clothes, Kuroto wouldn't really be sure whether he stabbed Shinichi or not. It is definitely not a genjutsu effect, because even if somehow I couldn't resist it with the Tenseigan, Ryumyaku would have definitely woke me up. Since Kuroto is already the Ryumyaku's Jinchuriki, and since the young form of Ryumyaku is quite docile, therefore, Kuroto can fully use the power of Ryumyaku, as long he doesn't exceed the upper limit that would cause the invasion of natural energy, so he can more or less be regarded a perfect Jinchuriki. Therefore, most of the genjutsu attacks are ineffective on him. If it's not a genjutsu, then why did my attack turned invalid? Thought Kuroto while holding the Kusanagi sword. The special ability of this Kusanagi sword is to inhibit healing. Moreover, the blade has been specifically treated in a poison that Kuroto concocted himself. Therefore, Shinichi should already be dead, based on the fact that Kuroto stabbed through his heart. But Shinichi recovered instantly, moreover no scars. But Kuroto can be sure that Shinichi hasn't used the forbidden technique, Izanagi. For one, Shinichi didn't have the opportunity to cast it, and second, his chakra is still normal. Now, this makes Kuroto quite interested in what kind of ability Shinichi has awakened. It is definitely not simple regeneration. Based on the smell, Kuroto can judge that the bloodstains that were present in the tree cave were indeed Shinichi's. However, if his Mangekyou Sharingan ability is regeneration, then he shouldn't have suffered such serious wounds. Therefore, his Mangekyou ability is definitely not simple regeneration. Is it quick healing? No, it's not quick healing, because if that was the case, then why the bloodstains in the tree cave? Is it the removal of the state of injury? That's not it either. One ability is to temporarily negate all damage, but he must suffer from them at a later period, so his ability is to transfer the injuries into the future. Yeah, that makes sense. Analyzing all the information, Kuroto made this guess. After all, Uchiha Kurumi couldn't even get to finish her last words before her death, so he must have the guilt regarding that. Shinichi on the opposite side recovered quickly and said at this moment, see? You can't beat me. Ignoring Shinichi's words, Kuroto asked tentatively, it's postponement. The ability of one of your Mangekyou Sharingan is to transfer damage into the future, right? Shinichi's expression shrank as soon as he heard Kuroto and finally muttered with a defeated sigh, as expected of the person who defeated so many Uchiha, your insight and analysis is really sharp, but now that you know about it, I can't leave you alive. It seems that now I have no option but to kill you. Whoosh. As soon as he finished, Shinichi's figure turned into after image as he rushed straight towards Kuroto like an arrow released from the bow. Heh. Shinichi's speed has definitely increased quite a lot. Thought Kuroto as he calmly greeted Shinichi's sword with his. Clang. 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 And finally, the clash between them started. For a moment, the sound of metal and metal slamming sounded in the forest as both Kuroto and Shinichi fought purely in nothing but simple speed, insight, perception, and Kenjutsu. Shinichi was a special Jonin before awakening Mangekyou Sharingan, and if not for the Hokage faction to deliberately reduce the number of Uchiha promoting to Jonin, then he should have definitely been promoted to Jonin. And Kuroto is someone who has awakened the mythical Tenseigan Dojutsu, which is comparable to the Rinnegan. So long as Kuroto's prowess keeps increasing, his strength will continue to rise. In the war period, Kuroto acted as the censor class whenever he had to go on the missions, so insight and perception are some of the strong points that have only improved ever since he awakened the Tenseigan. Therefore, the simple Kenjutsu battle between the two is a sight to behold. After dodging away from a wind-enhanced sword slash that cut off several trees far away, Kuroto retreated sideways and dashed towards Shinichi. His Kenjutsu skills are really good, definitely better than Uchiha Hiragi and Shirsue's. Thought Kuroto while analyzing Shinichi's Kenjutsu skills with his Tenseigan. Kuroto was really enjoying such a pure taijutsu and Kenjutsu battle. And now Kuroto understands why Shinichi was able to crush the Root and other Umbu shinobi. It wasn't just thanks to the Mangekyou Sharingan, Shinichi has definitely surpassed the level of an elite jonin without even using extreme Mangekyou techniques. While Kuroto was impressed by Shinichi's progress and enjoying the battle, Shinichi didn't have the same state of mind. Shinichi thought that he would easily be able to kill Hyuga Kuroto, but now he is shocked. Even with the insight of Mangekyou Sharingan, he was barely able to keep up with the Kenjutsu battle against Kuroto. This caused a storm in his heart. Ever since he awakened the Mangekyou Sharingan, Shinichi became indifferent towards other jonin. Even the jonin of the Uchiha clan were not in his line of sight. Shinichi is sure that he can easily deal with most of the jonin, and he wasn't wrong. Shinichi is sure that he can easily deal with Hatake Kakashi. And this is the reason why after slaughtering a large number of Root and Umbu ninjas, Shinichi felt that even if it is the Sandaime Hokage personally, Shinichi can deal with him easily, and dealing with Hyuga Kuroto would only be much easier. But here he is now, giving his all just to keep up with Hyuga Kuroto. Sometimes even capturing Kuroto's movements is difficult for him, so this naturally freaked him out. Just what in the hell is going on? Clang. All while these thoughts were going on in each of their minds, the battle didn't stop even for a second, and the forest area around was already a mess, while they continued clashing. After one big clash, both of them retreated backward. Both of them panted with a heavy breath while intently observing the opposite side, trying to find flaws in the other party's defense. With how Kuroto operates, after confirming that no one was around, he should have already used the Tenseigan chakra mode to directly kill Uchiha Shinichi using the truth-seeking orb or golden will reincarnation explosion. But two things stopped him from doing so. For one, Shinichi's Mangekyou Sharingan ability is quite weird since he can postpone injury, so this makes Kuroto a little cautious to not yet reveal his secret cards. And second, is that he is actually enjoying this battle, so he wants to take his time and have the most out of it to increase his own strength and see if he can recruit Shinichi. After all, if you have someone of Shinichi's strength working for you, then many things would become much easier. While Kuroto was mulling over this, Shinichi was getting angry at himself. Looking at the newly added cuts on his clothes, but no damage on Hyuga Kuroto on the opposite side, Shinichi suddenly roared in anger, "Damn it, don't think that this is all my Mangekyou Sharingan is capable of. I am going to make you kneel before me as you realize which one of us is superior." Shinichi is obviously finding it difficult to keep up with Kuroto in a battle of pure insight, taijutsu, and kenjutsu, even when he used Mangekyou Sharingan, so this makes him really angered at himself. Damn it all to hell low. Accompanied by Shinichi's roar, the dark green skeletal figure of Susanoo was projected out of his body. Standing in the Susanoo's ribcage, Shinichi looked towards Kuroto coldly and shouted, "Hyuga Kuroto, you were a good opponent, but now die." Kuroto didn't say a word, just silently observing Shinichi's Susanoo while dodging the chakra blades that were fired towards him. At this time, Shinichi's Susanoo wasn't an incomplete ribcage version that Kakashi described, but an upper body skeletal version. So, he has already reached stage 2 of Susanoo. As long as Shinichi is inside the Susanoo's defense, most of Kuroto's simple attacks would be useless. Sheathing back the Kusanagi sword, Kuroto raised his arms and formed the seal. When Shinichi saw that Kuroto trying to cast some jutsu, he coldly stated, "Hyuga Kuroto, don't waste your effort. In the face of the mighty Susanoo, nothing you do will be effective." The sheer power of Susanoo again reverted Shinichi's mentality to be the superior one. But Shinichi still waited for Kuroto to complete the seal print because he wants to totally crush Hyuga Kuroto. Initially thought that having a fair battle with Kuroto would be best, as he didn't believe that Hyuga Kuroto would have any means to fight against Susanoo. Therefore, Shinichi didn't start the battle with the Susanoo, but now that he found that conventional means wouldn't work, and the fact that Kuroto was able to somewhat guess his Mangekyou ability, so he had no choice but to resort to using Susanoo. Whoosh! With the completion of seal, the cyan blue chakra flames wrapped around Kuroto's body, like a cloak, and instantly his body started hovering in the mid-air while 3 truth-seeking orb floated around his back. You! Shinichi was dumbfounded at the state that Kuroto was in at the moment. Shinichi was shocked, but there was still more to come, as Kuroto muttered, golden will reincarnation explosion. Announcing its majestic presence, a 10 meters long dazzling golden chakra sword emerged in Kuroto's hand. This time, Kuroto only used one truth-seeking orb to condense golden sword, and deliberately suppressed its length. After all, if repeated events of the land divide were to appear in many countries, then those dots can be connected to him. Therefore, Kuroto chose to control his strength to defeat Uchiha Shinichi, as that's his current goal. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.